Hello, March 29th, 2021. I'm Pastor Rusty. And these are some thoughts this Holy Monday, the last week before the crucifixion, Easter as we call it. Yesterday we had Palm Sunday. And one of the things that's not covered a lot in Palm Sunday is what happened after that event. He went on into town, and as he was coming into town, Luke 19 says, as he approached Jerusalem, he saw the city, he wept over it. And he said, if you had only known on this day what would bring you peace, but now it is hidden from your eyes. You think about that. He's had his 3-year ministry, teaching and walking and showing that he is who he claims to be. And they recognized him. The regular people of the day recognized who he was, and they were worshiping him and praising him. And it says in Matthew that they sought for a reason when he was teaching in the temple later on that day to capture him. They wanted to crucify him. But the people were hanging on every word, and they were looking for an opportunity. That opportunity would soon present itself as we have the crucifixion later on in the week. But it's interesting what he says. He says, if you had only known what would bring you peace. And there he was, the Prince of Peace. He said, the days will come upon you when your enemies will build an embankment against you and encircle you and hem you in on every side. They will dash you to the ground, you and the children within your walls. They will not leave one stone on another, because you did not recognize the time of God's visitation or coming to you. And think about that. Think about the heaviness of that statement. And, we know that in 70 AD, this is exactly what happened. So in about 40 years, which is an interesting number, about 40 years from this time, the Romans would surround Jerusalem, and they would build and they would build siege ramps, and they would take them over. And for 3.5 years, they surrounded them, and everything was just as Christ said. Everything happened just like he said it would happen. And you think about how the wheels of time on this day, on Palm Sunday, the week of his crucifixion, he says, you've missed it. Now, the results weren't for 40 years. But on that day, he said, you've missed it. Just like when the Israelites were going to go into the promised land, they went in, they looked around, they come back, said, we can't do it. 10 of the spies said, we can't do it. And God says, okay, turn around. The very next morning, they said, we're sorry, we'll go in. And God said, you've missed it. Now wander. And he wouldn't let them go. And so they had to wander for 40 years. Here we are again, and he says, you've missed it. And then 40 years later, after wandering and the building of the church and the taking away of all the things temple related, God takes away the temple then, and he builds a new temple. It's in us believers, but it took 40 years. But on this day, on Palm Sunday, he said, you've missed it. And he wept over that. And I think, what today are we missing? There's so much that we can learn, so much that we can do, and so much we can live for. But at the same time, the things that we're doing for him, that he will remember and he will reward, those things one day will be returned to us. And it's also a promise that we have. So this day, whatever you're facing, you may be facing something that was started 40 years ago. You may be dealing with something that somebody else caused. Remember, Joshua and Caleb had to wander for 40 years, even though they said we could go in. This time, the walls of Jerusalem were going to be completely destroyed and never built back within 40 years. And the Christians that were there, they saw this and they went through this. And sometimes we go through things that other people have caused or started, but God is faithful. So remember that this day. God is faithful. No matter what you're facing, you don't know the reason for it. Maybe it's not aimed at you at all. You're just reaping what somebody else has sown. Live for God today. Live holy. He never forgets our deeds. Because, see, they didn't recognize the time of God's visitation. So look around today. See what you can see that God is doing in your life. Give him praise and give him glory and live for him. Remember, it's Holy Week. Keep your mind focused on the cross, the death, burial, the resurrection of Christ. That's what everything is about. Well, I'm Pastor Rusty. I'll talk to you later in the week. God bless you.